theyeshiva.net.
Okay, we'll start a new mimer today. The Megillas Esther, page 195. Tzadik Ches, column 1. This is a mimer from the Balatanya that was said Purim Tovkuf Ayin Aleph. That would be 1811. The second to the last Purim of his life. Passed away Tovkuf Ayin Gimel Chavdalat Tevis. So Purim Tovkuf Ayin Aleph was a little less than 2 years before that. And it begins with the words of the famous words of the Gemarah, Masechta Megillah, Daf Zayin. The Gemarah says, Amar Rava, Chayav Einish lebesumah b'Purim Adar lo yada ben Arar Haman lebarach Mordechai. Person is obligated, as Rashi says, lebesumah b'yayin, to become intoxicated or inebriated on Purim until he doesn't know the difference between cursed as Haman and blessed as Mordechai. Why is the simcha of Purim greater, even greater, more than Simchas Yom Tov, than the mitzvah of joy on Yom Tov? The Chayav in Buhu b'simcha b'dayraisa. The question is, by Yom Tovim, there's a Chayav of Simcha b'nat Torah. It's actually a biblical obligation of Simcha. Ve'im kol zeh vaday ein lebesumah kol kach. And yet, nowhere does it say that somebody should have such an experience of lebesumah, intoxication. K'meshe kasav harambam gabe simchas Yom Tov, and as the Rambam says it clearly by simchas Yom Tov, that lo yimshach bayayin, a person should not get drawn into a drinking fest on Yom Tov. In other words, not only is there no chiyuv to be intoxicated on Yom Tov, on the contrary, even though it's a simcha midayraisa, the Torah says to be happy, v'samachta b'chagecha is a biblical commandment on Yom Tov, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos. Still, it's not like Purim, and not only that, on the contrary, the Rambam says clearly, lo yemashach bayayin. Person has to be careful not to get drawn into too much drinking. And he says, and he explains, Shenasa b'em nisim lavesedo. You'll say, well, these Yom Tovim are maybe just, celebrations. He says, what happened? Miracles happened to our forefathers. Kamei b'Pesach, on Pesach. And in Pesach itself, you have not just Yitzias Mitzrayim, but Kriyas Yamsov, splitting over the sea. It's a pretty impressive event. Yeah. You have Shavuos, Matan Torah. Matan Torah was a pretty loaded event. And Chuli. Chuli obviously is referring to Sukkot, that Nane covered, 40 years in the desert, and the clouds of glory. So it's not like Purim, you'll say, it's a gewaldige thing happened, the Jewish people were saved. And the other Yom Tovim are smaller celebrations. On the contrary, the other Yom Tovim had nisim that were l'mayla min hateva, beyond nature, in a very clear way, like Yitzias Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yamsov, or what happened by Matan Torah at Har Sinai. And of course, when he's saying this, nisim, that by the other nisim lavisein or Kriyas Yamsov, it's intensifying the question, because by Purim you didn't have a Kriyas Yamsov. By Purim, the miracle was manifested in nature. In other words, if you would report on the story of Purim from from a secular perspective, what happened? If you could strip everything, right, and you look at the story, what happened? Happened was, luck had it that the first lady was Jewish, right? Literally, and klugefrei, and she knew her husband's weak spot. It's called addiction. He was not an AA. He was not Alcoholic Anonymous. And that was it. She got him drunk a few times. I mean, that's the story. That's really what happened. That's the story. That's the Megillah story. Hashem's name is not mentioned in the Megillah once for a reason. Yeah, like it says in Sfarim, because it's concealed. So, there was no Kriyas Yamsov by Purim. There was no Yitzias Mitzrayim by Purim. There was no Matan Torah v'chalam royim esakailas v'salapidim by Purim, even though obviously it was a great moment. Nonetheless, the Rambam tells us in Hilchos Yom Tov in Perek Vav, by Yom Tov lo yimashech bayayin. Happy, yeah, but don't get drawn into the wine. And Dafka Purim is Chayav Einish L'B'Surim B'Puri Adalayat. And this itself also doesn't say in the Megillah. The Megillah says Yemei Mishta V'Simcha, days of feasting and joy. Rabbi in Gemarah is the one who says in Torah Shabal Peh, Mesechta Megillah Dav Zayin, Mechayev Einish L'B'Surim B'Puri. A person is obligated to experience this tremendous joy on Purim. Huh? Well, the source for Rav is the pasuk says Lasas Oisam Yemei Mishta V'Simcha. So the Mishta is associated with Simchas Purim. What do you think it has to do with? Depression?
Maybe drinking, getting drunk.
Oh? What?
Maybe they're drinking for Simcha and then they're getting drunk for...
So he says, Chayav Einish L'B'Surim B'Puri. But Parshas, it's part of the Mishnah, it's the Mishnah and Simcha of Purim. This mitzvah of Simchas Purim, huh?
This is using for getting drunk or for drinking?
What?
This is using to get, they're using to get drunk?
If they're using this, oh yeah, they use this very well. You'll finish the Maimah, you'll see that you have to use it a little differently, but they use it very well, yeah. No, the pasuk says Yemei Mishta V'Simcha. Chazal, Anshe Knesset Agdola, the Nevi'im made a takana that it should be every year celebrated as a day of feasting and joy. That's not his shaila. Chanukah was also a big miracle. There's no Chayav Einish L'B'Surim b'Chanukah. Chanukah is b'chal no Chayav Mishta. Huh?
But Purim is where we specifically, the pasuk uses the word Mishta as opposed to an Adar Yom Tov. It doesn't use that word.
Okay, so Zayin Azoi. So he's saying because the Megillah uses the word Mishta, feasting, which you don't have by Yom Tov, clearly, it just says V'samachta b'chagecha. Right? Ein simcha ela b'basar, ein simcha b'yayin. He's saying in Chumash, it doesn't say the word Mishta. Okay. Interesting order. Oh, you mean Shasai? Yeah, that's true. Mishta means a time to, the etymology of the word Mishta, you're saying is Shasai. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
So when it says in the Rambam, the third line, it says the Simcha Midrash, is it talking about regular Yom Tov?
Yeah, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. That's his question. Purim is a rabbinic holiday. In other words, it doesn't have the power of Yom Tov. Yom Tov is a mitzvah min Torah. It's from God Himself. Huh? In this man of the Beis Hamikdash, yeah. But the mitzvah Simcha is always, even when there's no Beis Hamikdash. The mitzvah Simcha and Yom Tov is always. It's a timeless mitzvah. Furthermore, the question is, Ubemaila, even if you look in terms of quality, Harei Hayomim Tovim Kedoshim Yoser Shasuna B'Siyas Malacha Mashenkin B'Purim the Mordechai Gazar V'Loi Kibel Alayim. The question is even more than this. In quality, Yomim Tovim are actually more holy, more sacred. V'Haraya, they're forbidden. B'Siyas Malacha, you're not allowed to do Malacha on Yom Tov. As the pasuk says in Parshas Boy on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to do Parshas Boy and Emer, etc. You're not allowed to do Malacha on Yom Tov. Purim doesn't have that quality of kedusha. In fact, the Gemarah says, it's a fascinating Gemarah, that Mordechai tried, and the Jews didn't accept it. The Gemarah says in Megillah, we learned it a few days ago, Daf Hey Amid Beis, is when Mordechai made Purim, he had one plan, and the Jews diverted the plan. Daf Hey Amid Beis, the Gemarah says, an interesting thing. In the Megillah, in the beginning it says, in Megillah Perek Tes, it says that after the Nes, the Yehudim HaPrazim, the Jews in the open cities, they made the 14th day of Chodesh Adar Simcha u'Mishta v'Yom Tov u'Mishloach Manas Ish L'Re'eyo. A day of joy, feasting, Yom Tov, and a day of Shalach Manas. Later it says, 3 psukim later, that Mordechai sent letters to everybody to do Purim. Lasas Oisam Yemei mishta v'simcha mishloyach manas ishlei matanas lavyonim. As the Gemarah, Yom Tov fell out. What happened? First, it was supposed to be a Yom Tov. Originally, it was seen as Yom Tov, and then Yom Tov fell out. It's a very strange thing. So the Gemarah says, what happened? So he says, that was Mordechai's plan. Mordechai's plan was, he wanted, it should be a Yom Tov. What says the Yom Tov? It should be Asa b'Malacha. What happened? Malacha loy kabilu alayu. The Jews decided not to accept it. So a Mele Yom Tov was deleted. It's not a day that's Asa b'Malacha. And the Gemarah over there discusses it, that Purim is not a day that's Asa b'Malacha. There are places where they were noyeg not to do Malacha, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch that in a place where they're noyeg not to do Malacha, one should never do Malacha because it's not going to be a siman bracha. But to say that it's forbidden to do Malacha on Purim, it's not forbidden. And even places where they don't do Malacha, Malacha is for Purim. For example, driving around all day to deliver Shalach Manas, right? It's not forbidden on Purim l'kulal, or cooking or baking and so forth. So even Yom Tov you're allowed to cook and bake. But b'chlal, Malacha on Purim is completely mutter in terms of, especially if it's for Purim and it's for Simchas Purim, it's not an issue b'chlal. So the Balatanya says, so that means even in Kedusha, Purim never became that day of complete Yom Tov, that sense of a holiday like Pesach or Shavuos where you don't do Malacha, where you abstain from the mundane. Nonetheless, Dafka Purim received this mitzvah of Chayav Einish L'Psum. Yuvan behekdim, but Mashekim Purim, the Mordechai Gazav Alei Kiblo Alayu. Which, of course, brings up, a much bigger question that will be addressed later. What exactly happened here? Mordechai had one Purim, one vision. The Jews had a different vision. There was an argument. The Gemara doesn't explain why there was an argument. Another interesting thing is, the first time, it says Mishloach Manas. When Yom Tov is deleted, suddenly there's Matanas Lavyoina. In the Yom Tov, in the original Purim of Yom Tov, doesn't say Matanas Lavyoina. In the second Purim, without Yom Tov, suddenly there's a new mitzvah Matanas Lavyoina. I thought Rabbi Yonis and Eibshitz writes, in Yaris Dvash, I think, he says that it says about Yom Tov, the Rambam says in Hilchos Yom Tov, from the Pasuk, it says you should rejoice v'samachta b'chagecha, you and your wife and your son and your daughter and your servant and your maid and the widow and the orphan and the poor person and the convert, the foreigner. That's part of the mitzvah samachta b'chagecha. So the Rambam writes in Hilchos Yom Tov, the same Rambam Perek Vav, that somebody who on Yom Tov only eats themselves and their family and they don't feed anybody else, so ein ze simchas Yom Tov ela simchas kreisai. It's not a simcha of Yom Tov, it's a simcha of your stomach. And part of simchas Yom Tov is to share the simcha with people who are more needy. So he says, so it's very geschmack. Initially, Mordechai wanted Purim should be a Yom Tov, so he didn't have to make a mitzvah of Matanas Lavyonim, because part of the mitzvah of Yom Tov is you give to the poor. That's part of the mitzvah of Yom Tov. But once they didn't accept Purim as a Yom Tov anymore, it's not a day that's Asa b'Malacha, so now we put in, so now there's a special mitzvah Matanas Lavyonim. So that's why in the second Purim there's a new mitzvah, besides Mishloach Manas, it also adds Matanas Lavyonim. So it's very b'diuk in the Megillah. No, that's v'samachta b'chagecha, you and your family. But then there's the simcha. So there's an inyan of achnasas archim and all that. Perish chagechem. V'yuvan b'hakdim. This will all be understood. B'hakdim inyan v'kibul ha'yehudim es ashrei chelu lasas. There's another pasuk in the Megillah. V'kibel ha'yehudim. At the end of Megillah Esther, Perek Tes, it says the Jewish people accepted what they began. So the Gemarah says, what's pshat? V'kibel ha'yehudim in the first perek of Megillah. What's pshat? So he says, v'kibel ha'yehudim as asher chelu lasas. Yeah. Heichelu hainu b'shas matan Torah. The Jews accepted what they began. What's pshat? They started to do something. When? By matan Torah. And now they accepted what they began. Ukamayim Azal, like the Gemarah says, al pasuk kimu v'kibel haYehudim or the ksiv is actually the kri, actually v'kiblu Yehudim, kimu v'kiblu Yehudim. Also Megillah says the Perek Tes, kimu mashe kiblu kvar. Gemarah says in Masechta Shabbos and Masechta Megillah, they affirmed what they already accepted. So you have two psukim. One is v'kibel Yehudim es hasheichelu lasas. In Megillah says the Perek Tes. A few psukim later, kimu v'kiblu Yehudim. Both mean the same thing. They accepted what they began by Matan Torah, and they affirmed what they accepted in the past. Why? So the Gemarah says, "Ki b'shas Matan Torah kaf aleim har kegigis u'mekan meidar Rabbi lo yiraisa ela dehadu kiblu b'meach hashverish." The Gemarah says in Masechta Shabbos Peches, it says they stood under the mountain, below the mountain, that Hashem placed the mountain over their heads like a gigis. A gigis is an overturned vat. And he said, if you accept the Torah, good, and if not, this mountain is going to come down like an elevator. So they accepted the Torah. So the Gemarah says, Mikan, and by the way, who says it? Rava. Amar Rava, just for reference, will be relevant. Amar Rava, there's a Shabbos Daf Peches. Mikan moidor Rabbi lo yiraisa. From here, there's basically a reason to say, a Jew could say, I never accepted Torah, it was all forced. And when anybody puts a gun to somebody's head and says, accept this commitment on yourself, you're giving me a house, it's worthless legally. Why? Because it was done by coercion. It says, Mikan, from here, moidor Rabbi is a great reason to excuse yourself from Torah by saying it was coercion. No, so the Jews are off the hook. So he says, no, by Purim they ruined it. Because they accepted it willingly. How do they know? Because it says, Kimu v'kiblu Yehudim. What's Kimu v'kiblu? Kimu masha kiblu kvar. What they once accepted by force, they now said, yeah, we like it. We like the idea. That's when the Gemarah says, Masechta Shabbos. No, Purim not. Now Purim was around 1,000 years after Matan Torah. So for 1,000 years, it was considered forced. And then by Purim, it was considered volitional, biratzin. Rashi says, Simcha hava, avas hanes shenasala. And as a result of that, the Maidar Rabbah is gone. They can't say, oh, we never really wanted this. This is what Rava says, the Taichin Kimu v'Kiblu. That's what Rava says. Yeah. This is how he's starting the explanation. And it happens to be in Megillah, it's Rava who says, Chayav Einish l'psumah b'Purim. V'tzarech lohavin, mipnei ma nechshav mashakaf aleim har kegigis, yoyser Einish b'masad achashverish. What is the idea? That the kaf aleim har kegigis is considered more Einish, more forced than what happened by Achashverish. Meaning, by Achashverish's time, Haman wanted to exterminate every single Jew. So the Jewish people were petrified and frightened, and they had nobody to turn to but God. That's pretty compelling if you talk about force. Nonetheless, you could say there was tremendous pachad, tremendous fear as Jews, and Mordechai said, return to God. They have a choice. They wanted their children to live. They wanted to live. Gigis is a barrel. Why the word kigigis? Because, excellent question. Because a gigis is used for mashka, for wine. Yeah, right. So that was by Matan Torah, was overturned. The wine spilled out. And then by Purim, you hold up the gigis. Chayav Einish l'psumah b'Purim. You don't like my Purim Torah. Okay.
I mean, I like it, but it's not real.
Okay. How do you know that it's not real? Because you like it, huh? It doesn't resonate. Okay. Kaf aleim har. Kaf aleim har. Now, if you understand that the Gzeira of Haman came il-maila from heaven, Haman wasn't trying to have them do tshuva. Haman was trying to kill them. But if one understands the Gzeira of Haman came il-maila because of their maisim, so when they did tshuva and the Gzeira was bottled, so the question is, it's also a psashtikal mountain over their head, maybe even stronger or equal. So of course, in order to understand any of this, you have to first understand what is Matan Torah. If Purim is the continuation or the completion of Matan Torah. So what is Matan Torah? You can't understand Purim if you don't understand the beginning of Purim, because Purim is only a continuation. The Gemara says in Masechta Pesachim Daf Nun, fortunate is the person who comes here, v'talmudai biyadai. His Talmud, his learning is in his hand. What's the question? Halei beganeidin misangim megiliyed Sof Baruch Hu. Umashayach bezeh sheyidavke talmudei biyadai sheim halachas shenislapshu binyanim gashma. Misha Balakan is somebody who came here to Gan Eden. In Gan Eden, they experience the tainug, the delight from the revelation of the light of the Ein Sof, blessed be He, the light of infinity. That is Gan Eden. Gemarah says, Nenim miziv hashchina. Right? Tzadikim yoishvim, Gemarah in Brachas Yud Zayin, Tzadikim yoishvim, atrisayim bereisayim, gedenkst, das gelernt a paar Tag zurück. Brachas, v'nenim miziv hashchina, they enjoy the radiance of the shchina. That's the Lashon in Gemarah. In Kabbalah, when the same Lashon is written in Kabbalah or Chassidus, the Lashon is going to be Gilui Oir Ein Sof Baruch Hu. In Gemarah, you won't have an expression Gilui Oir Ein Sof Baruch Hu, you have an expression Nenim Mizivat Shchina. In Sifrei Kabbalah or Chassidus, you'll have the expression Gilui Oir Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Just it's good to know these references, how the Gemarah describes something, how Kabbalah describes something. What's Gilui Oir Ein Sof Baruch Hu? The revelation of the light of the Infinite One. That's what Gan Eden is. Yet the Gemarah says, not enough. You have to come with Talmudai biyadai. You got to come with your learning. What's the learning? What's the learning that we do in this world? The learning that we do in this world, as he says, is halachas shenislapshu binyanim gashma. It's the learning, halachas, that's manifested and expressed through material items that we're learning, because the Talmud of a Jew in this world is not the experience of Ein Sof Baruch Hu. It's usually not the secrets of Torah and the awareness of godliness. It's the halachas of Torah, whether it's halachas of ribis, of interest, or the halachas of building a native, or the halachas of a cow, my ox, goring your ox, or the halachas of civil disputes, or whatever the halachas are, from Masechta Brachas till Masechta Uktzin. But it's halachas that every single one of them, from beginning to end, whether it's agriculture, whether it's giving a coin, whether it's bringing a carbon, whether it's cleaning a body or a vessel, has to do with physical items and matter of this world. There's no halacha that's excluded from that. Either it's relating to your body or relating to the world around you, etc. Nonetheless, the Gemarah says, Asher Misha Bolakan v'Talmudei biyadei, asks the Balatanya, how does the Talmud help to the experience in Gan Eden, which is Nenin Miziv Ashchina? How does it help? L'chayre here you have Gilui in Sof Baruch Hu. Mashayich b'zeh shiyeh davka Talmudei biyadei. How does the Talmudei biyadei, the halachas that are relating to the Gashmias, contribute to that? Gama Shamru Razal. Another thing that has to be understood is what the Gemarah says in Masechta Sanhedrin Tzadik Tes. Where does it come into Gan Eden? What does it do in Gan Eden? Over there, there's the Gilui and in Sof Baruch Hu. What does the halacha, the knowledge, and the background of the knowledge, the pilpul that got it? It's not only the halacha b'poyel in the Shulchan Aruch, it's the background of it. The Gemarah, the Mishnah, all the background there, the Rishonim, the pilpulim, which all brings to what? Knowledge. Okay, so this is what has to be done in this situation. Right? Whatever, whether it's an abstract situation or what, as he puts it, Mashayich b'zeh sheyadav. What does that do in Gan Eden? What does that create in Gan Eden? That you say, Ashrei Misha Balakan v'Talmudei biyadei. Gama Shamru Razal. How does that prepare for the experience? How does it prepare you? And without it, the experience is missing. Another nikud is the Gemarah says in Sanhedrin, Kol Mishav Shalei Lasik B'Torah V'Einei Yosek Alov Nemar Kidvar Hashem Baza Hikares Hanefesh. It's from a pasuk in Shlach. It's a very sharp Gemarah, that if somebody has the ability to learn Torah and they don't, on this person it says, he disgraced the word of God. He kares hanefesh, the soul is cut off. Why? Because misha efshel elasik b'Torah v'einei yosek. Frag the Balatanya v'zet tamu alachayre. This is strange. Why? The meyacher shemishi efshalei lasik b'toida kol kach yotzi dechivasa b'perek echad shachas perek echad arvis im kein lama yiyah efshalei lasik ve'enei oisik gadol avene kol kach lomer alav ikaras tekaras chol. Very interesting question. The Gemarah says, v'hagisa b'yoyim v'layla. The Pasuk says in Yeshua, should learn Torah by day and by night. So the Gemarah, Meseches Menachos, Daf Tzadik Tes says, this depends on every person individually, their circumstances. There's a person, who may have a hard time learning, or may be very busy with making a livelihood for the family. He also has to learn, but he's Yotze, Perek Echad Shachas, Perek Echad Arvos. Chapter of Kriya Shema in the morning, chapter of Kriya Shema at night, or chapter of Torah, and he's Yotze Talmud Torah. A few minutes in the morning, a few minutes at night, Perek Echad. And he fulfilled the whole mitzvah. Why? Because he has to look at his life circumstances. What he's capable of, what he's shayach. According to Derech HaTeva, he has to obviously eat and drink and sleep and support his family. So he's Yotze Perek Echad Shachas. Then there's the Jew who has more time, more ability, whatever the circumstances are, is to learn more. So he says, you have here a fascinating thing. Somebody who can't learn Torah the whole day, he fulfills his obligation with Perek Echad Shachas, Perek Echad Arvos. How could you then say that somebody who could learn more, and he doesn't, it's so serious? He says, Avoyne Gadol Kol Kach, to say Yikaras Tekaras. It's such a serious thing that it should create such a powerful penalty of Karas. In other words, all other Karas are something that's for everybody. Person has relations with his sister. There's a Chayav Karas. With a Niddah is a Chayav Karas. Eating chametz on Pesach. Eating on Yom Kippur, eating blood. Here, it's an interesting thing. It's completely subjective. For one person, the fact that he's not learning now for hours and hours, you're fine. The other person who has the ability to learn, and he doesn't, what is it? It's not just he's wasting his time, he should be doing something better. It's Dvar Hashem Boza. He embarrassed the word of God, he kares, but it's completely subjective. You don't have that in any other Issa kares in the whole Torah. It's a very interesting question. Verstehst du, Shaila? I understand something, God says this is very bad, but for you, it's fine. Go to work. You got to be with your kids now. You got to be with your wife now. You have a job. You got to show up in the office. I understand. The other person, because he could learn now, so it's not just he has to learn. You could learn, you have to learn. No, it's on the extreme of if he doesn't, it's Dvar Hashem Boza, he kares to kares, his soul gets cut off. He says, what's the Havana for the other Jew? There's no kares whatsoever. He's doing the right thing. He's not supposed to learn now, or at least he doesn't have to learn now.
Someone's bored, get to the work.
But that's not the Vart. It's not what the Gemarah is saying, because he's bored. There's other things to do, if not... He's asking that it's the seriousness of it. And it's all subjective. It's completely subjective. One person, as they would say, relative. The theory of relativity. It's all relative. The kares is completely relative. You don't have such a thing in Torah. It's a very, very interesting phenomenon. If somebody doesn't do a mitzvah behidur, they do the mitzvah, but not behidur. They don't do it in the most beautiful way. They just do the basic obligation. You're not going to say their soul gets cut off. Why? Because they didn't do the mitzvah behidur. They didn't do it with the full beauty. Yeah, what's missing is hidur mitzvah. Could have been better. Fine. They showed up, they did the mitzvah. There's one exception, Talmud Torah. The etzem chayav of Talmud Torah is not all day. V'haraya. You could fulfill the mitzvah in the morning and at night. It's better if you could do it all day. So if he doesn't do the hidur, he doesn't do it all day, what happens? It's like, whoa, you embarrassed God, he cut us to cut us. That's Talmud Rebbe's question. So he went from the question of Purim, why Chayav Einish l'psumah b'Purim, versus all the other Yomim Tovim, there were Osa Nisim, and not only that, it was L'mayla Menat Teva, and not only that, they're Asr b'Malacha. to the concept of kimu v'kiblu and kiblu es sheichelu lasas the hemshech of Matan Torah. Understand what's Matan Torah. Understand what's Ashri Misha Balakan v'Talmudei b'Yadei. How does Talmudei b'Yadei halachas that deal with physical matter add and contribute and are essential to the experience of Ein Sof and Gan Eden? How is that the preparation for Gan Eden? And finally, this last question of the relativity of the Chayav of Talmud Torah and yet the severe stringency in the person who doesn't observe the Hidur of it, l'chayra. This concludes the questions of this Maimer. Now the Balatanya starts the explanation. We'll continue Be'ezer Hashem tomorrow. Tomorrow there'll be a Shir regular time. Sanhedrin Dav Tzadik Tes. Tzadik Tes Amid Beis. And the other Gemarah that you could be Yoitze Perek Echad Shachas Perek Echad Darvas is also Tzadik Tes. Menachas. 2 Tzadik Teses. Sanhedrin Menachas. Sanhedrin says Kidvar Hashem Baza Hikaris Tikaris. Kol Mishav Shalei Lasik B'Torah. He quotes it also in Tanya Perek Aleph, by the way. And then the other Gemarah is Menachas Dav Tzadik Tes. Du bist gefahren 2 Shahid lernen. The ganze 2 Shah soll ich lernen. Barber Rav de Chad Yoime. Du weißt die meisten Gemarah. The Moshe Segwen Ayid, yeah, he would travel 3 months from his house to the Beis Medrash. He would learn for 1 day, and he would go back 3 months. They called him Barber Rav de Chad Yoime. And Rabbi Yochanan said it's like he learned Torah for 6 months. They called him Barber Rav de Chad Yoime, a Talmud of Yeshiva of 1 day. Why did he learn for 6 months? Because the 3 months and the 3 months, it was all for the 1 day. So du hast schon gelernt, ich weiß wie lang. Moshe, how long do you drive to come here? 2 minutes. Today you weren't late. And today, and he drives 2 hours, hour and a half. Welcome back. Okay. 195, Tzadik Ches, column 2. 4 lines from the top. Acha Inyan. So after all the questions, in the beginning of this Maimer, Chayav Einish, L'besuma b'Puria Adar lo yada b'norer Haman l'barach Mardechai. Question number 1, very briefly, why is the Simcha of Purim greater than the Simcha, the joy of all the other Yamim Tovim, despite what would seem like to be, if anything, on the contrary, the Moyadim should have a greater Simcha? This was in Teva, they were beyond Teva. This is Midiraisa, this is Midirabanan. Here there's a Isser Malacha, here there's no Isser Malacha. And yet,
maybe there's not more simple to maybe we need to say drink more wine because it's not.
okay, but this obligation, if Torah says it's an obligation, it means because the day calls for it. It's not an artificial imposition. It's because the day calls for it. And by Yom Tov, the Rambam says, Dafke not to be drawn. And in fact, it says that Bezdin, it says it's brought in Halacha, in Rambam and in Shulchan Aruch, the Chazal say Bezdin used to send out people on Yom Tov they would send out Yom Tov. There should be boundaries. And Purim dafke adalayat. So he started off the introduction that Purim was the end of Matan Torah. It's the completion of Kabbalah Torah. By Matan Torah it says Kaf Alayim Har, right? He placed the mountain over them. And Purim, they accepted it. They accepted the Torah willingly, as the Megillah says. Kimu v'kiblu. Kimu masha kiblu kvar, or v'kibla Yehudim esha shachelu lasos. 2 psukim in the Megillah. And he asks, L'cha'ira, the Gzeira of Haman was also an Einish. It was also a kfiyah. It compelled them to tshuva. So he says, for this you have to understand Matan Torah. And he brought two Maimorei Chazal about Torah that both require explanation. One is from Masechta Pesachim, one is from Masechta Sanhedrin. The Gemarah says in Pesachim, Ashrei Misha Ba Lekan v'Talmudei Biyadei. Fortunate is somebody who comes here. Here means to Gan Eden, to paradise, and the Talmud is in his hand. And he asks, if Gan Eden is really Hana from Ziv Hashchina, enjoyment, radiating, basking in the radiance and the light of Ein Sof, of the Shechina, what is added by that? Why is that dependent on the learning of Torah the way we learn it here, where we're learning about halachas dealing with all types of material matters, zroyim, moyed, nashim, nezikin, kachim, taras? How does that prepare one for the experience of Ein Sof in Gan Eden? Just the question itself is an important question, right? This is a question, the Alter Rebbe here asks it in his language, but essentially you'll hear this question from dozens or hundreds and hundreds. I have heard it from quite a few young men, sometimes young women, especially teenagers. Why am I learning Gemarah? What is this? What is this adding to my life? What do I need it for? What's the point of it? Some of you have heard this question from some of your very close kin. The way the Alter Rebbe asks the question is, what's Pshat Ashrei Misha Ba Lekan v'Talmudei Biyadei? What's Lekan here? You're experiencing Ein Sof Baruch Hu. What does the Talmudei Biyadei? Why is that the preliminary or the invitation or the introduction or the foundation that allows you to be able to experience the Ein Sof? What's the connection? In very simple English, it would mean, what does this do for my life? What does this really do for my life? How does it connect me to infinity? You understand? Teenagers don't always know how to articulate themselves as well as the Balatanya. But what does this have to do with infinity? Show me what it has to do with infinity. I'm just saying, when you read these questions, it's important to see the neshama of the question. It's not a technical question. Gan Eden is Ein Sof. What does a halacha? Shnayim Eichs and Betalis, two people fighting over a cloak, right? Or two people fighting over a property, or two people fighting over the roof fell down and who has to rebuild it, which is a huge sugya. The roof fell down. We're living in a condominium. You live on the second floor, I live on the first floor, and the roof caved in, or the floor in between caved in, or there was a hurricane, a Sandy came and destroyed the house, and who has to repay, and what if you don't want to? Important stuff for civil law. Yeah. How does this become a prelude for infinity? And it's probably one of the deepest questions about Judaism today. There was a whole generation of Jews in America and other parts of the world that were lost to Judaism. I'm not talking about people who grew up in Monsey or Lakewood or Crown Heights or Borough Park. That's a whole separate sugya. I'm talking about, a lot of kids, right? Some of America's great artists who as kids may have had religious grandparents, or they may have had Hebrew school, but the last thing they would associate with infinity or enlightenment or expansive consciousness is Judaism, right? The last thing. You could speak to them. Like they wouldn't even have a thought about it. Judaism, they may like it, they may not like it, they may be angry, they may not be angry. Gefilte fish may speak to them, may not speak to them. But if anything, Judaism represented the antithesis of expansive consciousness. It represented tribalism, narrowness, small-mindedness, tribalism, dogma, and restrictiveness. Some people sitting in this room know about your own experience in your youth, especially when they learn Gemarah, right? So there's people that their minds are made for Gemarah. It's like they become alive. But essentially, a lot of them look at it, right? And it's like, what, really? You want me to sit with this some hours a day? So the Alter Rebbe asks it all in one line. What does the Gemarah mean? Ashrei Misha Ba Lekan v'Talmudei Biyadei. I know my introductions could never be 20 seconds. No, but as I was saying the question, I realized I didn't realize this the first time when I was reading it. When I was saying the question now, I realized how relevant the question is. You understand? Yeah, he asks it in his language. Gan Eden is Ein Sof. What does it have to do with halachas gashmas? But the question is really the question of a generation, or at least many of the generation. And finally, the last question was, the Gemarah tells us that if somebody has a chance to learn or opportunity to learn and he doesn't, very, very strong words about this person. From Parshas Shlach, Kidvar Hashem Baza, he karis to karis, and he says there's something strange about this because it seems like a hidur mitzvah, because somebody who doesn't have a chance to learn all day fulfills the mitzvah of Talmud Torah with one chapter in the morning and one chapter in the evening, which could be a few moments. As he says, even with Kriya Shema in the morning and Kriya Shema in the evening, the first part of Kriya Shema is a chapter in Torah, you're Yaitz Talmud Torah. Of course, a person who could understand more should learn more. But not everybody could learn Torah a whole day. And that person is Yotze the Mitzvah, even one parak of Torah in the morning, one chapter in the evening. And one chapter doesn't mean a whole parak of Chumash, which could be a long parak. It could be 60 psukim, 40 psukim. One chapter means one section of Torah, like Kriya Shema. For sure. And then somebody who can becomes Chayav Kares on one moment that he doesn't. You don't have such a serious penalty that becomes so relative. Usually, when something is such a serious penalty, it's not relative. It's an absolute because it's such a serious thing. You don't say that murder for somebody who's in this state or murder. Okay, it's all right. It's fine. We'll let you go. And then somebody else. Yeah, obviously there's a difference between shaygig and mezid and between if you had kavana, you didn't have kavana, obviously. But if the situation is one that is such a serious penalty, it becomes strange that it's so relative, because it seems like on one level it's a hidur, because it's not for every single Jew. For haraya, many people could get away with much less al pi Torah. Nonetheless, the Gemarah is so sharp about it. So to understand all of this, while Tanya begins a long explanation, which starts with Acha Inyan. 4 lines from the top, Acha Inyan. And the truth is that here we're introduced into a extremely fundamental idea in Yiddishkeit Bechlal and in Torah specifically. And it's really a paradigm. It's a foundation to understand a lot. Not only what he's explaining in this Maimer, which is a plenty, but also generally an understanding of Torah and Yiddishkeit, as we will see. So he says, Acha Inyan, the explanation in all of this is Kihine HaTorah Nikras Moshel HaKadmoini. The Torah has a very interesting name. It's called Mishal or Mashal HaKadmoini, K'moshe Kasov. As the Pasuk says, where do we have this? The Pasuk says in Shmuel Aleph, Samuel 1, chapter Chav Dalet, Perek Chav Dalet, Pasuk Yudalet. Kasher Yoymar Mashal HaKadmoini Meirishayim Yetzei Resha. The Navi says, as the Mashal HaKadmoini says, Mashal is the metaphor, parable. Kadmoini literally means the original parable or the primordial parable, the Mashal from way back. Kadmoin means like the first Mashal. It's an interesting expression. So like the Mashal HaKadmoini says, Meirishayim Yetzei Resha. From the wicked comes out wickedness. V'hu mashakasav ha'elikim ina liyadai. And the Chazal take this pasuk, Meirishayim Yetzei Resha, which the Mashal HaKadmoini says, and they explain that this is the meaning of the words in Parshas Mishpatim we learned last week. Ha'elikim ina liyadai. What does this mean? So Rashi in Parshas Mishpatim last week says that if somebody killed somebody by mistake, which means God made it happen by a coincidence, by chance. So Rashi says this, Kasher Yoymar Mashal HaKadmoini Meirishayim Yetzei Resha. What does this mean? So it says like this. It's a Gemarah Masechta Makos, and Rashi says this in Shmuel and in Mishpatim, Bekitzer. Mashal HaKadmaini is called Torah. Why is it called Mashal HaKadmaini? So Chazal say, because it's Meshalesh Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's considered God's parable, God's metaphor. And Hashem is called the Kadmain, meaning he's the source, the beginning, the genesis of all beginnings. It's the source of everything. So he's called the Kadmain. So Torah is called the Mashal of the Kadmaini, the Mashal of God. It's God's parables, God's metaphors. And therefore, he says, Merishayim Yetzei Resha. What's Merishayim Yetzei Resha? So Rashi says the famous story, there's two people. One of them killed by mistake, one of them killed willingly. There was no consequences because nobody saw. So what happens? They come together in the forest, and he's on a tree, right? And he's knocking wood, and the log falls on the other person, and the one who killed willingly but ran away from responsibility is killed, and the one who killed unwillingly because he was knocking down a tree and he felled a branch or the hammer and fell on the person, and people see, and he has to go into exile because he killed b'shoigig. B'shoigig means inadvertently, but not completely. He was completely irresponsible, meaning he wasn't an Einish. Then there's no galus. A shoigig means you had to be a little more careful. I mean, he wasn't trying to kill anybody, but he was somewhat negligent. That's the definition. What do we see from here? That the way that the Tanakh and the Chazal describe Torah is, at least in some places, mashal hakadmayim. It's a mashal. V'chein Shlomo Melech alav hashalom amar lahavin mashal u'melitza. Shlomo Melech also in Mishlei, he opens up Mishlei, chapter 1, verse 6, lahavin mashal, to understand mashal u'melitza. Mashal is again a metaphor, a parable, allegory. Melitza as well. Mashal, Melitza, different words represent allegories, Mishalim. And this is how he starts off, Mishlei Lahavin Mashal Melitza. Why would Torah be called a Mashal? Mishalim are usually riddles, mind games, stories, parables, metaphor. You know what a Mashal is? Yeah, Mashal is, it's like there's different types, but generally it's understood. Like a chida is a riddle, like Samson's riddles that he did with the Philistines, I understand. Once in a while, Torah gives up a mashal, but to say the whole Torah is a mishalim, it's a strange thing. All of Torah is a mashal. Where's Torah a mashal? Somebody is giving a presentation, and in the middle they give a long story, which is a parable, or a metaphor, or an allegory. Yeah. So that's a mashal. How often do you have that? Once in a while in Medrash, the Medrash will say, mashal l'ma hadav adayim. I'm going to give you a mashal. But to call the whole Torah Mishala Kadmaini, most of Torah is not comprised of Mishalim. You have Mishalim and Torah, you have parables. For Ha'inyan, it's the name, Mishala Kadmaini, that really captures Torah more than anything else. Why? For Ha'inyan, ki pirish HaKadmaini, hainu Kadmaini shel olam, shu orein sof baruch hu atzma. The word here is Kadmaini. The word Kadmaini, says, represents Kadmaini shel olam. Kadmaini shel olam means, Kaidem means before. It's before everything. It's the source of everything. There was no time when he was non-existent, because Ein Lo Tchila, he has no beginning. That's Kadmaini shel olam. As you'll go back, there was never a time that he didn't exist. In fact, he created time. So Kadmaini shel olam means that which was before anything, including before there was a concept of before. Because the concept of before is a concept of time, before and after. But that's what the word kadman, like from the word koidem, you say koidem, right? It happened. Koidem means earlier, and yet earlier, and yet earlier. The kadmain, it's the earliest phenomenon in the universe, even earlier than the word earlier, because earlier already represents time. And the reason is because Hashem is reality. It's the essence of reality. It's a necessary, the Rambam has an expression, mechuyev hametzias. Everything else is a possible reality. God is a necessary reality, meaning it's intrinsic to reality. It's a reality that doesn't have to be created. It's a reality that is essential, so therefore it's kadmain. Its reality precedes everything else. This is what kadmain shel olam means. Deeper yet, he explains, Hu orein sof baruch hu atzma. When we speak about godliness itself, what are we speaking about? We're speaking about the kadmoiner shalaylam, meaning Ein Sof itself, the light of the infinite one himself. You have godliness, like we learned many times, Shema Vaya de Lasata. You have godliness, the way it trickles down, the way it's manifested, the way it's filtered, the way it's compressed and contracted and restricted. But here he says it's Ein Sof Baruch Hu Atzma. And he explains, Kibchin is Sovev Kalalman, Malik Kalalman, Zehu Masha Nimshach Mimenu Yizbarach Ha'ara, Liyos Chayes, Laha Oilamas. Vim Kain, Bchin Ezu, Hishayach Loilamas. You may talk about not Kadmoiner Shalaylam, not Kadmoini, but if you talk about Sovev Kalalman, Malik Kalalman. Yeah. In Zohar, we have these two expressions that we learned about in many Maimara, that Hashem is Sovev Kalalman and Malik Kalalman, which represent two types of divine energy that are communicated to the worlds. Mamalik Kalalman is the energy that fills the worlds, just like the soul fills the body, and every single limb of the body is infused with the electricity, with the vitality of the soul. So Hashem is Mamalik Kalalman, God is like the soul of the universe. Every little organism has a soul, and the big organism has a soul. The macro like the macro like the micro. This shefa, this flow, is misamtsem, it's filtered, it's compressed, and it's manifested in every single created being according to his or her unique chemistry and identity, just like the faculties of the soul in their relationship with every single limb and organ of the body. That's Mamalik Kalalman. We learned this many times. Sovev Kalalman represents that which encompasses. Sovev literally means saviv, it surrounds. What does it mean surrounds? We don't mean graphically, it's around the world, it's not in the world, but it means that which is infinite. In other words, it transcends the individual identity of every living organism. It's not grasped and internalized by the consciousness of a nivra. It would be like in your life, in my life, your own superconscious, that you cannot, it's not filtered into your brain's consciousness. How much of our unconscious or superconscious or subconscious is filtered through our brain in a way that we could experience it consciously? Very, 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 very little. So it's not like the other things are not there. Of course they're there. In fact, they're probably much more important because they have a much deeper impact on me. Because since it's not conscious, it really has a very deep impact on me. But the impact is one that's not felt within my kalim, within my vessels. That's so the way to say that is sovev. Sovev is it's as though it's above you. It doesn't mean it's above you, it's not inside of you. It's inside you, but it's as though it's above you in the sense that you don't describe yourself by it. It's not the way you would describe it. Mamalik Kalalman is the way Hashem is internalized in every nivra that he or she describes themselves by this. And Sovev Kalalman means it's above me. So these are two types of Oir through which Hashem vitalizes the worlds, and therefore he says, it's still not the concept of Kadman. I Sovev. Ki gam b'chinas Sovev b'chinas sheshayich la'alman. Shehu ma shemechaya ha'olam es rak shehu b'chinas Oir makif. Even Sovev is connected to the worlds. It gives life to the worlds. It's just called an Ur Makif. There's Ur Pnimi, an Ur that's internalized, like Pnimi, it comes in the Keli. It's felt in the parameters of the Keli because it's compressed and tailor-made to the size and the nature of the Keli. And then there's an Ur that's Makif, it's above, it's transcendent. So even Sovev Kalalman, which is infinite, and therefore it's not grasped and internalized by the individual, unique, distinctive organism and structure and chemistry, spiritual or physical, of every single created being, its function is to give chiyus to olamas. Its relationship is one of makif, not one of pnimi. There's two types of relationships. There's two eyes. There's the eye that I'm aware of, and there's the eye that is a much deeper eye, which I'm unaware of, because if I would be aware of it, it wouldn't be that, and it would either overwhelm me, it would either completely overwhelm me or destroy me. Or I would become something else. Either it would overwhelm me, or my me would not be able to remain my me, which is why your brain filters so much information and doesn't want most of it to come. so that you should be able to live in your comfortable life. And when we have glimmers of the Makif, it shakes things up. It's like OMG, right? Really, you have to say OMS, oh my soiviv. That was just a joke, huh? But not such a bad one. But okay, I know it's early in the morning. What is mamale? What may be mamale? What may be soiviv today may become mamale tomorrow, right? And what soiviv tomorrow may become mamale the next day. You understand? As the keli grows, more could fill it, but the soiviv always remains. There's something deeper and deeper and deeper. So soiviv could sometimes become a male. What's for one person soiviv is for another person a male. Or to put it, perception, yeah, depends on your keli, yeah. Or to put it as an expression in the Torah, what for one person is yediyah is for another person amunah. What for one person is knowledge is for another person faith. The Alter Rebbe asks, when Mashiach comes, how will there be amunah? Amunah means believe, but if everything will be visible, so what do you need amunah for? I need amunah that there's a tissue box there. I need amunah that Rabbi Aaron is sitting in front of me and smiling. I mean, unless I believe I'm having an optical illusion based on the realms of nature, you don't need amunah for certain things. So the Balatanya says, what's going to be the amunah la'asid lavoi? It says, v'nigla kvoid Hashem v'rochal basar. So he says that because Hashem is Ein Sof, so there'll be amunah and deeper. In other words, what is today's amunah will be tomorrow's yediyah, but there's still always amunah because there's that which is ingraspable. So it's completely infinite. There was, the Alter Rebbe had a chaver who was really a Rebbe of his. His name was Reb Mendel of Haradoker, Reb Menachem Mendel of Haradok. Some call him Reb Mendel of Vitebsker. He came from Vitebsk. Reb Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk. He wrote a sefer called Pri Haaretz. He was from the oldest students of the Maggid of Mizrich. When the Maggid passed away in Tovkuf Lamed Gimel, 1772, Yad Kislev, Balatanya went to Reb Mendel for a few years as a Talmud of his. Then he went to Eretz Yisrael. He moved to Eretz Yisrael, the first Aliyah of the Hasidim, and he's buried in Tiberia, in Tiberias. A lot of tzaddikim then moved to Eretz Yisrael. The Balatanya also wanted him, but he didn't let him. He said, you have to stay in Russia. So he once went to him for Simchas Torah, Simchas Torah. Yeah, Mogalov, yeah. You come from there, no? Your mother comes from there. When he was there, on the way to Eretz Yisrael. Mogalov, yeah. So he once went to the Mendele the Docker for Simchas Torah. So, these were the Mendele with Tzaddik was a very big tzaddik. He was a holy Jew, and he wasn't coming out for Hakafas. He wasn't coming out. And everyone is waiting, and there's no Hakafas. He's not coming out. He's in his room. So they sent the Balatanya, because of his prominence, they sent to go in and try to see what's going on. So he went in. He knocked and he went in. And he said, what's happening? The Olam is waiting. It's Simchas Torah. They want to do Hakafas. So he said, I just discovered 100 new interpretations in the Psukim of Ata Haresa. And I can't go to Hakafas if I don't internalize them, if I don't make them real. So I can't go out. What do you want? I'm sorry. I can't be a charlatan. I can't be a fake, Go out and make believe on this. It has to be real. So I have to deal with it. I have to work on it. Yeah, he would lose it. Of course, he would lose it. He would lose it, and he would feel that it's not real hakafis. He's not. So the Alter Rebbe told him something. The Alter Rebbe said that when you're looking at the horizon, you're looking at the end of the horizon, a clear day, you see a mountain over the horizon, and you feel that in a few minutes, if you walk, you'll touch it. And you start walking and walking and walking, and you come to that place where you're supposed to touch it, and then you suddenly see that you have to walk much further. So you'll walk further and you'll touch it, and then you walk there, and The Alter Rebbe said, you're going to internalize these 100 interpretations, and then you'll see another 100. And you'll internalize those 100, and you're going to see another 100. So he came out to do Akafas. So this is, that's the story of Sovev. The story of Sovev is that because it's transcendent, so it's like it's layers. What today is transcendent can tomorrow become internalized. And then, etc. But these are all two levels of the relationship of the chiyus of Hashem to the world. It's not kadmoiner shaloylam. Aval mohusay vatzmusay yizborach eine begeder almen klal. V'loy shayach loymer alav sevev kol almen v'lachay nikra kadmoiner shaloylam. When you're talking about Hashem's essence, it's bechlal not in the realm of the worlds. And you can't even say on it sevev kol almen. Sevev kol almen means he encompasses all of the worlds. Just like Mamale is, he fills all of the worlds. Here you don't use the word Sovev Kol Alman v'lachei nikra kadmoiner shalayla. It's true Sovev Kol Alman represents infinity, but it's infinity that has a relationship with the world. It would be like in a person you would say, you're subconscious or you're superconscious. These are all experiences that relate to you. They're just bigger than what my brain is ready to deal with. I don't have the kalim for it. And everybody knows all growth is that way. Today, I may sit and I don't have the kalim to hear this. I'm not ready for it. Right? You could tell me something that I'm not ready for. It's the truth, but I can't hear it. Where does it go? It doesn't go in. Why doesn't it go in? Because I don't have the vessels for it. Where does it go to? It goes somewhere. Like a child, absorbs everything. It's a wet sponge. It goes into the subconscious. But one day, in 10 years, you're ready for it. And what happens? And suddenly the brain brings it in. That's what he meant. And it could change your whole life. Why? Now you open yourself up for it. So this is the concept of Sovev. But even Sovev, a person's subconscious or a person's superconscious has, so to speak, the information, the data that relates to you, relates to your life, relates to your place in the world. So it's Hashem the way it's in a relationship with Alman, with Kol Alman. Then there is something called Kadmoiner Shaloylam. That's the Atzmos, that's Bechlal not in the realm of the world. It doesn't have an erech, it doesn't have a yachas to the world. Sometimes you'll have a great sage who's talking, and some people understand. But some people don't. It's very powerful, and it's very, very deep. And it's very confusing for them. And they almost feel like it's like war over my head. They may even get a headache from it. Well, I'm trying to get it, but I can't. And it's frustrating for them. In other words, it does not go into the kalim. Sometimes you'll have a child sitting there or somebody else sitting there. He's not even confused. Why is he not confused? Because it's like, because he's texting. It could confuse me if it's in my realm. If it's completely above my realm, it doesn't even confuse me. You know what I mean? Confusion means there's a relationship. You're getting upset at me. You're getting upset at me because I triggered something. You're not ready to accept it. That's why you're upset at me. But it's triggering something. You're confused. You're overwhelmed. You're like, what'd you say? No, you have to deny it. Right? Or you're getting a headache. Why? Because you're breaking something. You're challenging my kalim. Sometimes I'm not confused. It's like I don't even know what you're talking about. It's bechalal not in that realm. It's completely different. I'm just giving it a mashal that sometimes there's something. It's completely out of my realm. So now, if we speak in a much more abstract way, he's saying Sovev of Kalalman is the Ein Soif, the way it's shayach to the worlds. Then there's Kadmoiner Shaloylam, is Muhusei V'atzmusei is Baruch, the essence that's B'chalal not Begeder Alman. It's B'chalal not in the realm of the worlds. V'haTorah Nikras Mishal HaKadmoini. So when Torah is called Mashal HaKadmoini, Hainu Sha'Torah Hi Mashal L'Bchinas Kadmoiner Shaloylam. Torah is a mashal, is a metaphor for what? For for kadmoine shalal. Kshekemoi shaydei hamashal yusag hanimshal. What's the function of a mashal? The function of a mashal is that people should be able to understand the nimshal. You're giving an idea, and the idea is too abstract. So you take the idea and you dress it up in a mashal. A mashal is like a lavush. It's a packaging. It's packaging. Yeah. What's packaging? Packaging is to make it appealing, to make it enticing. Could be in a cynical way, but could be in a very genuine way. You can have the best product in the world. If there's no PR, no public relations, expert dealing with it, no display, no packaging, it remains and decomposes in your basement. Some of the greatest artists died penniless. Why? Because there was nobody who can take their art and bring it to the public. It takes decades, sometimes centuries, until their art becomes recognized. And if you wish, if they could have only seen this during their lifetime. So there is form and there's substance. There's art and there's a frame. What is art without a frame? Huh? You ever saw art without a frame? Frameless. You know what art without a frame is? The greatest violinist, one of the greatest violinists living today is a man named Joshua Bell, Jewish kid, not such a kid, but every Jew is a kid, according to his mother at least. And he's considered one of the greatest violinists. His concerts, 50,000 people come, 100,000 people, tickets go for thousands of dollars. Probably could make a night a couple of $100,000 or much more. Not bad. He has challah for Shabbos. The Washington Post did an experiment. They took him, they dressed him up in a baseball cap and in somewhat of homeless clothing, very simple clothing, peasant clothes. They put him in a subway station Friday morning in Washington, D.C., where doctors and lawyers and entrepreneurs and professionals and accountants and all types of businessmen and craftsmen. It's a subway that's taken by the elite in Washington. Those who don't use Air Force One, but very prominent people who make a good living. And he's playing there for an hour, and he's playing the most sophisticated symphonies, ballads, concertos that people would pay thousands of dollars in a Stradivarius violin that's worth $15-20 million. A Stradivarius he's playing it. Okay, such a violin, one of the best. That's from the few Strads that are left from the 1500s, from Stradivarius in Italy, that has some magic to it, right? But he's in a subway station with a baseball cap and a torn pants and a t-shirt. And the main thing is he has a little plate for a couple of dollars. You could put in a couple of dollars. And he's playing, yeah? And how many people stop? The night before, tens of thousands of people were pushing to get a front seat because I'm sophisticated. I go to a Joshua Bell. How many people stopped? It's sad, but almost nobody. Besides children. And their parents were schlepping them. We have to go to school. But almost nobody. Why? It's called art without a frame. If people don't tell you this is great, how many people will know that it's great? Which is, of course, a sad commentary on the human experience. It's called the herd mentality. If it's advertised as, a Joshua Bell concert, everybody's running. But if it's not, so then a homeless guy playing, even though the music is exactly the same. They asked him what was the hardest part of it. And he said the hardest part of it was, I finished a symphony. Nobody clapped. It was Kaloi Haya, it was nothing. To create that motivation from within. There was no feedback. It meant nothing. This is art without a frame, art without PR. And the question is, does it have any value to people? And they tried to bring out how people were so busy and stressed that they couldn't allow themselves to hear the music of life. And I thought it's a brilliant metaphor for life. I'm running to the next job, and I can't stop and smell the roses. And even if there's brilliant music right around me, who has time? Unless it's going to be packaged that way. If it's going to be packaged that way, then everything is different. somebody told me a day or two ago on the phone, they listen to the shiurim from the internet every morning, very religiously. So this person tells me that it used to be, I would get up in the morning and I would say, today I have a very, very busy day. I have so much to do. Let me daven fast so I could get on. He says, now his whole paradigm changed. What do you mean, let me daven fast so I can get on? The main thing is to the davening. That's the relationship of life. Let me try to do everything fast. I could be able to daven. So what's a mashal? A mashal is critical because without the mashal, most people don't have access to the nimshal. You don't have access. So the mashal takes the nimshal and articulates it in language that allows people to understand the nimshal. And that's what a good mashal is. Yeah. Some of you know that the person who speaks here in the morning, right, is often teaching a concept, and in the middle he'll say, let's give a mashal for marriage. You ever heard that? Once in a while, yeah? Why? And suddenly, yeah, even those who were texting and daydreaming come to life. What happened? So the truth is, to make a little confession, I don't like giving mashalim because it dilutes the inyan. Surprising, right? Surprising. Yeah. I would rather learn without any mashalim. That's the truth. Carbs.
It's good enough for the altar. It's good enough for Hashem.
Sometimes I don't like it. Why? Because I feel that it dilutes and it compromises the emes of the inyan. Rabbi Litzman disagrees. Okay, thank you. Huh?
It's like if you say a joke, you have to explain it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was once in Virginia. It was there were three lecturers supposed to speak. It was a Sunday learning in Virginia, Fairfax. Rabbi Avram Breidowitz, teaches in Ar Sameach in Yerushalayim. He was a Rav then in Silver Springs, or Breidowitz. And Nat Lewin is a famous Jewish lawyer, right? Went to the Supreme Court many times, fought for different cases, public menorahs and other things. And myself. There was a 30 feet, literally, it was like 30 inches or 40 inches of snow. In some places, no. Virginia a few years ago was partially dangerous. Like, I don't know, it was in some places they said it was 10 feet, 20 feet. Like, it was higher than, it was a crazy snow. So they both canceled. I was there for Shabbos already. So they both canceled. So I had to do all the sessions because people in the community came. They were close by. So, and it was a whole day. Okay. So the first lecture was on Tzimtzum, understanding the Tzimtzum of Kabbalah. According to Kabbalah, what's Tzimtzum? The debate about Tzimtzum. We once spoke about the Tzimtzum. So I started off, and the organizer said, this one you have to speak for 2.5 hours because, okay, Tzimtzum, 2.5 hours is Tzimtzum. I started off with a joke. I don't remember what it was, but it was probably a good joke. My jokes are usually good. I mean, not always, but... And then I spoke for around 2.5 hours. And it was a serious discussion. I still remember, a guy came over to me. And in all seriousness, he says, the opening joke was pretty good. And I'm like, okay. I don't remember. That was the joke that I don't remember the joke. And he said, it was a very good joke. And you know what? I'm going to remember that. I said, anything else? He says, the joke. The joke was good. And then I thought to myself, is this how God feels about all of creation? Huh? Yeah. I said the joke to get people's attention, right? And that became everything. It became the tachlis, yeah. Because whenever the mashal is divorced from the nimshal, it becomes useless. The whole point of the mashal is to capture the nimshal, to convey it. But it's always a sacrifice because a mashal means that you have to bring down the nimshal into a world that will not understand the mashal, the nimshal. Yeah. Remember, I was teaching in Yeshiva Masechta Psachim. So there's a halacha there. If you have 10 stores, 9 of them sell kosher meat. I'm sorry. So there's a halacha there. The halacha is known as kol kavua kemechza al mechza, called the parish miruba parish, meaning if something separates, you follow the majority. Statistics, you follow the majority. If the majority is one type, you say this is from the majority. But if the doubt is created in a makam kavua in its permanent place, it's 50-50. This is a principle, yeah? If you just the principle is a principle. If you don't teach the principle, most students wouldn't know what you're talking about. So the Gemarah itself says, let's tell a story. Suddenly the story, everybody understands. It's still hard to understand the principle, but you understand. What's the story? There's 9 stores that sell kosher meat on one block. And there's a 10th store that sells non-kosher meat. And you find a piece of meat in the gutter. A plastic bag with a piece of meat. And you don't know which store it came from. So what do you say halachically? Kosher. Called the parish. Meruba parish. Statistically, 9 stores kosher. 1 store not. 90% kosher. 10% treif. You can go according to the Raif. Called the Meruba parish. That's very logical. 90%, there's 9 stores here, there's 1 treifah store. So statistically, what are the chances it came from the treifah store? It could have. But that's what halacha. But that halacha changes, fascinatingly, and you have to understand this very well. Halacha changes if I myself go into the store, I pick up a piece of meat, I pay for it, I leave, right? And I don't know which store I went into. I was texting. I was on my WhatsApp. I didn't realize. Ever happened to you? You come out. Now you should say exactly the same thing, right? What are the chances I was in the treifah store? Maybe I could have. I'm a guest. I don't know. I went into a store. I bought meat. Halacha changes now. It's considered 50-50. 50% kosher, 50% treif. Why? Kol kavua kemechza al mechza dami. If the suffix is born in the place of permanence, it assumes a status of 50%. In other words, the suffix didn't begin outside of the store. The suffix was created inside the store. Vis-a-vis itself, it's not bottled. The store vis-a-vis itself is not nullified in the majority of the other stores. When I separate from it, now it's a question of 90 versus 10. When the doubt was noilad b'makam hakavua, meaning when the doubt was created in the store itself, I just don't know which one it is, right? In the place of permanence, in your organic place, over there, you're not nullified. You retain your full identity. It's me versus you, even though there's another 9 stores. So therefore, it's kemechza al mechza. You have to understand what this principle is. Like mathematically, what does it mean? But if you would just say the words kol kavua kemechza al mechza without a mashal, it would be too abstract. Some people would understand it, but you speak about meat. The Gemarah speaks there about chametz and matzah, the same question with chametz and matzah. So suddenly it comes to life. Why? Because it was brought down. That's what the function of a mashal is. A mashal is always to articulate that which allows that which would have been inaccessible to be communicated to the audience. And by the way, it's essential to the art of communication. Those who do not understand the art of a mashal will never be successful in communication. You asked me about communication. What's the key? The key is knowing the world of the audience. If you don't know the world of the audience, I know a lot of people, they speak, they explain, they communicate, but they're not effective. They don't get into the kishkas. Why don't they get into the kishkas? Because 2 things. You have to, first of all, know the kishkas. You have to know who you're talking to. And number 2, you have to know how to take your material and bring it to the kishkas. Some people lack both. Some people lack one of them. You may know your audience, but you don't know your material so well. Because to be able to take material and make a mashal for it, you have to really master it so you can transform its medium and its veneer until it becomes truly accessible. One of the 10 people who were murdered by the Romans was Reb Chutzpis HaMeturgeman. Chutzpis HaMeturgeman. So the Arizal brings that chutzpis is from the word chutzpah. A real meturgeman, a real translator, must have chutzpah. Because people are going to accuse him of destroying the message. This is not Judaism. This is pop liberal psychology. Are they right? They could be right. They could be right. Only a man who knows the essence can translate things in ways that are radical without losing the core. If you don't know the core, you have to stick to the original material. If you really know the core, you could present it in a completely new medium that most people wouldn't even recognize where it came from because you have such a mastery of it. You're not afraid of communicating it in completely different language because you know when you're surrendering the essence and when you're just surrendering the frame. You know what you're losing and what you're not losing. That takes a certain audacity and a real mastery. You understand what I'm saying? A mashal is always painful because there's an element of diluting, there's an element of compromising. That's what I was saying before. It's like, okay, here we go again with a mashal. On one hand, I want everybody to wake up. Present company excluded. You're up before. Right? On the other hand, why is it that I can't appreciate the nimshal itself? The nimshal is much more real. It's a much higher place. But it's the mashal that brings it down. So if you want to lose the people, you stay in the nimshal. But sometimes the mashal causes you to lose the concept, the essence, the neshama. Lost in translation, right? Lost in translation. The real mashal is the mashal that really allows access to the nimshal through a different medium, whether it's a story, an allegory, an illustration, a metaphor, a personal life experience. It concretizes it in a way that I can see it, and then hopefully I can now go to a more abstract place and divest the mashal from the nimshal, take it away, and get back to the nimshal. That's the concept. So the Alter Rebbe is going to explain in the Hemshech of this Maimer that the deepest definition of Torah is mashal hakadmoini. All of Torah is a mashal. A mashal for what? A mashal for kadmoinoi shalaylam. And what's kadmoinoi shalaylam? Kadmoinoi shalaylam, we said, is not memale and it's not soiviv. It's atzmos ein soif, which is the kadmoin, meaning that which is before everything, including before soiviv, not just the divine relationship with the world, but the divine in its core. But that needs a mashal. All of Torah is a mashal hakadmoini. Now you'll ask, what, where, when, what are you talking about? What does this mean? This itself needs a mashal. This itself needs a mashal. So we'll see that bli neder in the Hemshech of the Maimer. We're going to learn that on Sunday, 8 o'clock, 1 hour later. Okay? Shabbos is the regular schedule, and we're going to learn Sunday Chassidus and then Gemarah. We'll now learn Masechta Megillah. Everybody have a wonderful day and a wonderful Shabbos. This Sunday, yeah. 1 hour later. Sunday, 1 hour later. If I don't know my audience, I don't know what mashal to give. I'm going to start giving children a mashal from nuclear physics. Verstehst? You have to know the material on a core level. If you don't know, a lot of people know the material, they could repeat it, but they don't really get it. If I don't really get it, I can't give a mashal for it. Because if I already give a mashal, I'll probably not say the right thing. You understand? When you know something at its core, you could strip it from all of the garments and retain its core and put it in a completely new level. When you don't know its core, then you could just give over what you heard, which is fine, which is nice. You won't be able to bring it down on that level because you didn't master it. You just repeat like a parrot. A parrot can't create new words.
It has to really come. You have to understand it first, I guess.
Yeah.
And what's the third? So obviously there's something missing. Then there's the know-how, how to deliver it. The people, how to deliver it.
Yeah, what I was saying, first of all, you have to know the audience.
Know the audience, know the material.
You have to know the material. So, but then comes the hardest part. The hardest part is I have to be able to bring it down in a way that is relatable to them. creating that mashal. And this is true on every level, literally every level. Person has a product, the best product in the world. Nobody else thinks so, right? Somebody once told me, or somebody once sent me, I don't remember, a story or a video. There was this fellow, he was trying to be hired by a company. So he goes into the CEO and he says, I'm a brilliant salesman. I could convince people, you want me in your company. So he says, really? Yeah, he says, yeah. He said, oh, give me a break. What do you think? You're God's gift to humanity? He said, I'm very good at it. So there was a bottle of water on the table. He says, okay, convince me to buy this bottle of water from you. So he takes a match and he lights the newspaper on the table. And suddenly there's a fire. He says, water! Cost $20. It cost $20. He hired him. Establish a need, right? Establish a need. Yeah. So what does it really mean? It means I can have a brilliant product, but you don't feel that you need it. How do I make it relatable to your life? So this is the business of advertising, of promotion. A lot of it is manipulation of the brain. At least you should think you need it. But in truth, that's the concept of a mashal. A mashal means I want to make this relevant to you. It should become meaningful to you in your life. It's not meaningful to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Like I shut down. It's no relationship with me. So that's the concept of a mashal. And it's manifested in endless different ways.
Makes a lot of sense. When you sell something, really, somebody will sell you a house. You don't need a house. You can talk about it in 5 minutes. Technically, you should buy it. You need it. Otherwise, you have to go down there. So you need to have a closer example.
Yeah.
That mashal is an example.
Yeah. A mashal means an example. An illustration. Yeah. Yeah. Kadmoinoi shaloilam is the nimshal, and Torah is the mashal hakadmoini. It's a mashal for the kadma. Shabbos. Have a wonderful day. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.